Welcome. My name is Frederick Middlebrooks. You are tuned into another episode of the Greatest Asset Community Podcast. And we're going to take this episode in a slightly different direction, but it is still going to include what our main focus is on this channel, which is housing, mortgage, finance, and how those things all tie together and how they can benefit you as well. But I want to actually open up by reading you a verse from 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. We just passed by the Thanksgiving holiday, and a lot of people during this time spend a lot of time with family. They may reflect on some of the things that they're thankful for. A lot of people use it as time to start getting their mind and things in order for what they want to do in 2025 or whatever the next year is. So from this vantage point, I actually want to focus it in on what I see as being a stumbling block for a lot of people when it comes to housing, and that is discontentment. A lot of people are not content with the things that they have, but then when they have an opportunity to increase what they have, in this conversation, purchasing a home, they're not content with the home that they could afford or the home that they're able to purchase. Everyone wants more. Everyone wants something that's just outside of their price range or just in a area that they can't quite afford to live in. And I see that contentment not only causing people to go into financial ruin because they stretch themselves too thin, but it also keeps even more people from being able to act and make a purchase that they otherwise would be making. Because rather than get what they can get, rather than being content with purchasing a home that they can purchase or having what they're able to have that fits well beneath their means, they'd rather just not have anything if they can't have the thing that their hearts desire. And that's something that I believe trips up a lot of people and causes a lot of people to stumble, is that discontentment. But what I didn't do is I didn't read the next verse. So it says, godliness with contentment is great gain. The very next verse, verse 7, says, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. So with all of the things that we are allowing to drive our decision making, whether it be a house that's not big enough or is not nice enough, whether it be a car that we drive that's not nice enough, whether it be whatever it is material wise that we tend to gravitate towards and let it drive our decision making in other areas, please believe you can't take it out of this world with you. It's going to stay here. You came into this world with nothing. You're going to leave this world with nothing. But while you're in this world, be driven by the things that God has put on the inside of you for you to pursue passionately. Maybe that thing is an ability to write. And so you need to write and be the best writer that there is. Maybe you need to draw. Maybe you need to be an architect. Maybe you need to be a plumber. Maybe you need to open up a landscaping company. Whatever it is that God put on the inside of you that you're passionate about, those are the things that are worth pursuing, not the material things of I'm working to get the money because everybody's talking about getting the bag now, but the money in and of itself is not going to fulfill you. It's going to allow you to accomplish a lot of things in the material world, but that emptiness that you still have inside of you can only be fulfilled by pursuing passionately the purpose that God placed on the inside of you. That's the only thing that's going to fulfill you. And it's funny that fulfillment is going to come whether or not the money accompanies it. What I find is that oftentimes you pursuing passionately the things that God placed on the inside of you will open up more doors, which will allow you to be able to bless even more people, not just with wisdom or with material things, but also financially as well. However, your fulfillment comes from fulfilling the purpose of God, regardless of whether or not you pursuing that purpose is accompanied by finances coming back to you. And so focusing on that is what I really want to just impress on you in this episode, because that contentment or lack thereof of contentment is tripping so many people up. I want to give a story really quick. So I met an individual who was looking to purchase a home, and this particular individual had I can't even say, well, I guess I could say particular taste, but it was really hard for this particular individual to find a home. They were looking and looking and looking. I mean, we must have seen well over 20 houses, and it's like, oh, this is nice, but it's not the one. This is nice, but it's not the one. It's like, what exactly are we looking for? Because as someone who's been, 15 years or more than 15 years in the real estate industry, all of these houses do not differ that much from each other. The layouts are slightly different, but after you look at a certain number of houses, they all start to just look the same. But we would go into one house and they're like, oh, this is nice. I like this, but I don't like this. It's not the one. And we just keep moving on. This lack of contentment kept driving us into looking at the next house and the next house and the next house and the next house, until we get to the point to where they find a house that checked all the boxes. Essentially, we had looked at probably 15 or 20 houses before we got to this house. We find one house that checked all the boxes, and they decide, okay, you know what, we're going to put an offer in on this house. So we put an offer in on the house. Their offer isn't accepted because the offer is going below asking price. And so the seller counters and says, no, we'll go down a little bit, but not as much as you want us to go down. So we'll go down a little bit. And the buyer or potential buyer that I was working with said, no, we're not going to have the house if we can't have it for the price that we want to pay for it. Understandable. However, what I tried to advise them is that, you know what, the house is going to be worth whatever the appraiser says. So if you want, you can get under contract, have it appraised. If the appraiser says it's not going to be worth that, then you have more leverage to negotiate an even lower price. But if the appraiser says that it's worth that or worth more than that, then you're paying what something's worth for the thing that you're getting. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they were set on, no, I want to get the house I want and pay what I want for that house. So they didn't end up getting that house. Fast forward a little bit, and they ended up getting a different house. They did not like the house that they ended up getting as much as the one that they put the offer in on. However, it's funny because they fought less to get the thing that they didn't like, because I guess at some point they just ended up having burnout or whatever it is, where they just got tired of looking at homes and they're like, we got to settle. Let's just get it. But they passed by other homes that they actually liked more, but they didn't move on it. They had this discontentment with the home or with the price that they were going to pay for the home that they liked. And it kept them from getting something better, put them into a worse place. And that's what I want to focus on, is that when you operate in that discontentment, when you operate in that area of, I'm not going to be happy with this, I'm not going to be happy with that, then it puts you in a place where now you're not only not getting what you want, you're not as happy with the thing that you do have, because you still have that discontentment. If you serve anywhere during the holidays, maybe you go to a soup kitchen and volunteer, or a homeless shelter and volunteer, or you volunteer at your church. When you serve other people, that does more for you than going out and buying things. If you go to a children's shelter during, the holiday season, Christmas time, and you see some of the gifts that they get, a lot of times they're gifts that if they showed up under your tree, you would be very unhappy with them. However, you will not find happier people than those kids at the shelter during Christmas time who are just overjoyed and happy about receiving something during this season. What would it look like for your life if you operated in that same type of thankfulness, that same type of joy, that same type of contentment with, you know what, I'm happy with what I have. Everything else in life is icing on the cake. I'm pursuing the purpose that God put me here to pursue, and everything else is just the cherry on top. what would it look like? I want to read one more verse in the same chapter section that we were in, 1 Timothy chapter 6. And I'll start from 6, and I'm going to read all the way down through 8. So I'm going to read one more verse on top of that. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. Actually, I'm going to read verse 9 too. It says, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. So that pretty much says the whole thing, because again, in this age that we live in, so many people are chasing the bag, as they would put it. And it's because they want to live this lavish lifestyle of, maybe it's flying in the private jets, maybe it's having the nice watches, or driving the nice cars, living in the mansion or the fancy house. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having those things, but those things have most people. Their thoughts are consumed with the things that they have rather than fulfilling the purpose of God. That's where they err. That's where they go in the wrong direction, is that they don't have the things have them. Every thought, every action is in pursuit of acquiring something of material value, pursuing something that's going to elevate their status in the eyes of men, rather than accomplishing their purpose that was given to them by God. So just think about that. And when you're out doing everything in life, again, I related a lot of this to home ownership, because in my profession as a mortgage loan officer, I see a lot of people who just go shopping house after house, house after house after house after house, and they're not content with having what they can have, and then not only being happy with that, but allowing that to grow them to the next level. Because that first verse, godliness with contentment is great gain. Being content with what you have, or rather being content to get what you can have. In my example with housing, if you're content to get what you can have, meaning that you want a house, you can purchase that house right there. You could go get that house and be content. Having that and allowing that to grow you as a homeowner, to grow you in your net worth, to elevate you to the point to where now you can gain even more. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Again, some of those people that are the happiest in the world are actually people that don't have all the material possessions. So it's not about just the material possessions and I want to get this house and this house and this house, because now you're back to focusing on, oh, I'm getting this so that I can have this, and then I'm getting this so that I can have this. Focus on just fulfilling the purpose God placed inside of you, but allow those same principles to filter into all the other areas of your life, meaning that be content with what you have. And if you're looking to purchase a home, be content with what you can afford. Be content with what your current financial situation, or where your current financial situation places you. Because that discontentment is something that ultimately, and pursuing the riches and everything, is what ultimately is going to lead to your destruction. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Hopefully this has been a blessing for you. Hopefully you had a blessed Thanksgiving as well. I know I spent a lot of good quality time with my children this Thanksgiving, so it was amazing. My wife is out of town for this Thanksgiving, but she's doing some amazing work where she is at right now. So happy to have her back as well in a few days. But in any case, thank you for taking the time to tune in. Take care, be blessed, and we'll see you in the next episode.